Welcome to Two Tall Guys Talking Sales, where big ideas meet big results. In today's episode, Kevin Lawson and Sean O'Shaughnessey break down the difference between regular season and postseason sales strategies, because waiting until the last minute to close deals is a losing game. They'll reveal why discounting at the end of the quarter trains your customers to pay less, and how smart sales teams avoid desperation mode with disciplined execution. Plus, you'll learn a simple but powerful 5-week training plan to keep your team sharp and always ready to win. Stay tuned. This is one episode you can't afford to miss.
So Two Tall Guys Talking Sales is a natural lead-in to basketball. We're big guys solving big problems. We're fun guys playing big games. And if you've listened to any of Sean and I's content over the past year, you've heard us talk about how you can't be a player and a coach all at the same time. You've heard us talk about leaning in and using the position player strategies to make sure you're focusing on the right deal stages with the right people. We're talking about postseason play right now. But for the topic for today, we want to talk about the difference between postseason and regular season, because as a VP of sales, your coaching style may be different, but we want to make sure it doesn't get crazy. We don't want to end up in the crazy cycle. If you're a salesperson and you're thinking about an end of quarter quota, staying current, how are you preparing for your next quarter? The last month of the quarter can be seen as your postseason because you've got to perform. Because at the end of the quarter, you're either at the top of the heap, middle of the heap, or the bottom of the heap. And who gets to cut down the nets? The one on top. Sean, always good to talk to you, and you're a basketball nut like me. I have a different allegiance. You'll remember I'm an ACC guy, not one of those other minor conferences. But for the purposes of today, let's engage all the sales leaders and sales folks on tournament play.
I love tournaments, and there's a bunch of tournaments. So you started talking about basketball, but obviously coming up is some really major golf events as well. There's 2 times of the year where I literally put it on my calendar that a sporting event is coming up. I literally put it on my calendar because it's in the middle of the day and I got to keep current, and I prefer actually just to sit in front of the TV and watch it. But those 2 events are the March Madness, the NCAA college basketball tournament, which I think is just a fantastic tournament. And then, of course, right after that, before you can almost even catch a breath, now we got Augusta, right? And we have the majors, we have the Masters. And there's nothing better for golf than just sitting there and watching that. And I'm a firm believer that golf is fun to watch. And I know a lot of people out there that don't think that, but golf is very fun to watch. Anyway, let's go back to sales. That's why you're here. Sports in general are great analogies. You hear them all the time for sales. If you are getting ready for the tournament, you literally are trying to figure out how to win or how to go home. Let's face it, right? The bad thing about a tournament is there's only one person on top or one team on top. The good thing about a tournament is that's what you want to get to. But in a 68-team league like the NCAA college basketball tournament, there's 67 losers. It's fact of life. 67 people will end their career for the year with a loss. The last thing on their resume will say, I lost. Only one team gets to do it right and win. And that takes an incredible amount of tenacity. It takes teams that can play every position. They can do all the things right. And it takes a great coach and great coaching staff and a great training staff to get those athletes ready. You as the owner of your company, speaking directly to you as the owner, need to put things in place that make that happen. Do you have the right team? Let's figure that out. Let's do that now before you get to the tournament, because you can't fix it after that. Do you have the right people in the right seats doing the job? Have you done the correct training? There's a couple of kids out there in the NCAA world right now that are bragging how they hit 180 free throws in a row, which is just an amazing stat if you think about it. That's the guy you want to get the ball when you are up by 2 or 3 points and the other team has to foul you. They don't want to foul that one kid that can hit 180 shots in a row because he's probably going to make both shots. They don't want to foul that guy. And guess what? If you're a coach, if you're the point guard for that team, you want that guy to have the ball as often as possible in the situation where you're going to get fouled. So all of those strategies, all of those thought processes, all that training to make your players as good as possible, same thing you have to do with your team. Are they the right people to go out there and present your product? Are they presenting your product the right way? Have you coached them and rehearsed them? Do you actually know what they say when they're in front of a prospect? Do you know what they say when they're closing a deal? Do you have your presentation for your closing meeting nailed? Is it locked in? Have you rehearsed it? Do they rehearse it? All of these things have to happen to be effective when you are selling. And our tournament, our games go all year long. Every day we have to do it. So we are always in tournament mode. Yeah, when it's the end of the quarter, end of the year, then you are really focusing just on winning. But you have to get ready all the time and all year long and really focus on developing the skills. So I built the case. Now let me explain a little bit how to answer the problem. And I'll turn it back over to Kevin because Kevin can talk a lot about this subject as well. Are you having regular sales meetings? And in your sales meetings, are you just not beating up on the pipeline, but are you actually having one skills development in every single meeting? I know I do, and Kevin, I think you do as well when you do your sales meetings, that every meeting we're going to do one skills development. Now, it may be simple. It may be, these are the metrics that I look at. And why are these metrics important? It may be, hey, everybody, there's a new thing on the market. How are we going to talk about it? Hey, everybody, how are we using artificial intelligence? What's our best way of calling that prospect? Hey, sales rep, you just closed a really cool deal. Tell us the story of how you got that deal, how you found that customer and what you said to that customer and how you grew that deal to as big as it was. Those things are important to build your team, to make them be ready, to put them on the free throw line with 2 seconds left, up by 2, and you got to make both of them in order to win the game. That's what you need to work on. And Kevin, I really would be interested in what else do they need to work on so that they win the tournament?
Winning is 95% mental. Most great coaches, most great philosophers talk about you win the game in the locker room before you ever set foot on the court. You have to be mentally ready. That doesn't necessarily take into account market factors, but for the purposes of this conversation, let's go high level for a second. When you're a coach or a player, you've got components you need to consider. So if you're driving, mark this for later, but if you're sitting, grab a pen right quick. Are you doing the behaviors that get you to the next step of a sales process, whether that's adding new deals to your pipeline or moving a opportunity strategically through your pipeline stages? As a management focus, are you focusing on strategy and tactics that will return success? I really have a distaste for brand new strategies at tournament time only. Those things typically are disruptive to your team. So if you're saying, hey, let's launch a new program for this last month of the quarter, and it's probably going to sound something like discounting or a Hail Mary. If you're behind in your sales right now, don't throw Hail Marys, don't discount. You're teaching your prospects, the people that could be really lifeblood for the longevity of your business, you're teaching them to buy late and only expect discounts, which means you're devaluing your product. And for commission sales folks out there, if you're listening to this, you're teaching your customers how to pay you less commission. Now, they don't necessarily know your commission rate, but they know that they can get a better deal if they'll wait to the end of the quarter. And what kind of chaos does that cause for every quarter? If your whole go-to-market strategy is based around discounts, you've probably got a product market fit and a pricing problem. Address that. Don't rely on discounts to make somebody else feel like they got a deal, because if they only get a deal, that means you never get a win. You never have the opportunity to add value to their business or yours. Salesperson focus. If you get so obsessed on closing the deal, your breath stinks. It's called commission breath. We want to avoid those things. The value of a relationship to you on Friday the 31st should not be any different than Monday the 1st or Monday the 3rd, right? So when you're thinking about what am I doing this week to serve a customer? It's not, what am I doing this week to close the deal by Friday at 5 p.m. to get my commission credit? It's, how do I serve this customer? If I'm only focused on the end of the month and doing the behaviors that get urgent at the end of the month, I'm always trying to shoot the three-pointer from half court to win the game. And that is a low production value shot. It's a low probability shot. We want to avoid those low productivity, low probability shots. If you're only throwing the bomb, only throwing the haymaker, only throwing the half court shot, you're basically setting yourself up for defeat more regularly. So if I've not beat that horse strong enough, I also want to challenge all of you sales people and sales leaders. Have an honest conversation about time management. Time management will make or break your quarter, year, month, week, day, hour. If you are constantly chasing butterflies, last week we talked about chasing butterflies versus planting a butterfly garden. If you never do any garden planting work, if you never set the stage to go and attract people to your business, you will constantly be chasing yourself, trying to get the next appointment from the half-qualified prospect or opportunity. So whether you're in regular season or postseason, you need to be managing your time well. And to Sean's point a moment ago about, hey, are you doing a leadership training, a skills development in every sales meeting? If you're a sales leader not doing that, sit down, write the next 5 weeks out of your sales meetings on your agenda, put in 5 minutes for training. And if you're wondering what you should train on, start with your pipeline stages. Just look at each stage. What gets a prospect into your first stage? How do they exit that stage into a qualified prospect stage? And walk that relationship and buyer journey all the way through to closed won or closed lost. Because frankly, back to time management, you want your salespeople to qualify well and early. I said that slow intentionally because quickly and urgently becomes the way you execute well. If you get a bad prospect out early, or somebody who can only buy one of your services, not all of your services, which makes you a high value vendor for them, you need to know that. And it doesn't mean they're bad people or you're a bad person. It just means that they probably are not the best fit for you. And I'm trying to draw a line between someone who could transact with you, read into that as no relationship or low relationship value, versus someone who can buy a lot of your services because they get a lot of value for it. Your ideal client, good, better, best, is not just a sales offering. Good, better, best can be customer and prospect fit for you. Frankly, to Sean's earliest point, it may have gotten lost in the other details, is that your team, good, better, best. If you've got a person who's great at opening doors but terrible at writing scope and closing, maybe they should be in business development. If you're only thinking about full cycle sales, if you're not hiring a full cycle salesperson, you need to make some adjustments. If you've got a great closer who really is challenged to open new doors, they're great at maybe cultivating or executing on their opportunities, keep them in that role. Your business is reliant on you closing existing and net new business, not just getting likes and comments. So, Sean, I close this out here because we've talked about basketball playing in the regular season. We've talked in the postseason. We've talked about strategy. We've talked about tactics and what to and not to do. All under the tent here. Bring us home.
Thank you very much. And I'm just going to talk a little bit more about that time management topic that you were talking about just a second ago, Kevin, because time management is so critical in sales. You have one thing that you cannot get back, and that's time. You can't get it back. It's, if you waste it, you wasted it. If you weren't effective today, then today may just be gone without being effective, and you can't go back and fix it. Nobody has a time machine to go back and close that deal when we needed to close it. It just doesn't exist. So you've got to be very effective in your time management. Just like when it's the end of the quarter, end of the game, 2 seconds left on the clock, and you're down by 5. That's bad time management. You needed to get ahead of that before. You needed to get ahead of that score before, because now you got too much to do in too little time. And that's the same thing as us right now. We have too much to talk about, and we ran out of time. So maybe we have bad time management. But on the flip side, we also say we're going to get done in 15 minutes. So I'm going to close out with 2 little things. The first thing I'm going to close out about is, now that we're getting very close to the end of Q1, let's get ready for Q2, which is a little hint for next week. We do have pretty good time management. We did know we were going to talk about Q2 and getting ready for Q2 at the end of this episode. So please come back and do that. My last thing is, what's your prediction for the NCAA tournament? Who's going to be on top at the end of that tournament? I'm thinking right now, I'm liking Duke. And I know that I'm getting really close to my friend Kevin here, but I know he doesn't like Duke. He just doesn't like him at all. But they're currently ranked, as we do this, number 2 or number 3, depending on the scale or the news source you look at. And they tend to do really good at the end if they're that high. So I'm thinking Duke is going to win. What do you think, Kevin? One real quick before we go.
Sean, with that bad prediction, I'm just going to go ahead and close this out and say we're looking forward to seeing you all next week when we're going to dig into Q2 and getting ready for it and finishing well.
I learned a ton about the dangers of last-minute discounting in this episode. Thank you for sharing. I also learned why last-minute discounting is one of the biggest mistakes sales teams make at the end of the quarter. When you drop prices just to close a deal, you're not just cutting your commission. You're training your customers to wait until the last minute for a better price. That's a race to the bottom, not a winning sales strategy. Instead, today's episode gave us a winning playbook for correctly staying in control and creating urgency by delivering value, not discounts. And speaking of staying in control, let's not forget the significant actionable item from today's show, building a 5-week sales training plan. If you're a sales leader, take 5 minutes right now to map out one skill to focus on in each of your next 5 sales meetings. Make training a habit, not an afterthought. The best teams in sports don't just practice when it's game time, nor should your sales team. Don't wait. Put that plan into action today before the chaos of daily business makes you forget. Now, before you go, we want to hear from you. Who's your pick to win this year's NCAA March Madness tournament? Drop Sean or Kevin a note with your prediction. We might just give a shout out to the best bracket picker in an upcoming episode. And remember, if you ever need help with sales, sales management, or simply growing your business, Sean and Kevin are here to help. Their contact information is in the show notes, and you can set up time to have them review your sales challenges. And while you're there, take a quick assessment to see how well your company's sales process is really performing. Thanks for joining us today on Two Tall Guys Talking Sales. Until next Tuesday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time, happy selling!